Did you know there's a small town in Kentucky that sits entirely inside a meteor crater? Or that this state might be one of the only places on Earth that's been hit by 2 cosmic impacts? How about the fact that deep underground there's a cave so massive it could swallow New York's entire subway system? And we're still discovering new tunnels every year? Well, Kentucky isn't just bourbon and bluegrass. It's one of the most geologically insane places in America. So buckle up, because we're diving into 50 of the strangest, wildest, and most unbelievable facts about Kentucky that you definitely never heard. Fact 50. The cave that eats cities for breakfast. Mammoth Cave is by far the longest cave system in the world. With over 400 miles mapped and potentially hundreds more still hidden, it's big enough to swallow New York's entire subway system and still have room left over. But here's the wild part. We're still finding new tunnels every single year. This underground labyrinth was carved by acidic water slowly dissolving limestone over millions of years, creating a vertical maze of rivers, canyons, and chambers. Humans have been mapping it since the 1800s, and yet most of it remains a mystery. It's not just a cave. It's an underground world we barely understand. Fact 49. The world's longest underground swinging bridge. Deep beneath Kentucky, there's a swinging bridge, suspended hundreds of feet above an underground river, in pitch-black silence. Hidden River Cave is home to the longest underground swinging bridge on Earth, hanging above the eerie place where 2 subterranean rivers collide. You can walk across it, you can feel it move, but don't look down unless you're ready to stare into total blackness and rushing water below. What's even crazier? This cave was once ruined by toxic pollution and declared dead. But after massive cleanup efforts, it's been reborn as a museum, a science lab, and a thrill seeker's dream. It's part ghost story, part redemption arc, and all very, very real. Fact 48. 5,000 plus caves, and that's just the start. The Bluegrass State is sitting on more than 5,000 documented cave systems, one of the densest underground networks in the entire US. And geologists think that could just be the beginning. Thanks to all that limestone under the surface, caves are still being discovered. Some just cracks in the rock, others large enough to fit football fields. Many sit hidden under quiet farmland, forests, or even suburban backyards. You could be walking over an untouched underground canyon and never know it. It's one of the only places in the world where explorers are still discovering new continents right beneath your feet. Fact 47. Kentucky is built like Swiss cheese. Imagine living on a sponge. That's what it's like in about a quarter of Kentucky, where the ground below is riddled with holes, caves, and rivers you'll never see. This is classic karst country, a landscape where water doesn't just flow across the surface. It disappears underground, travels for miles, and then reappears in places no one expects. Entire streams vanish into the earth. Yards collapse into sinkholes overnight. Fences? Gone. Trees? Swallowed. What looks like solid ground is often anything but. It's beautiful, but it's also wildly unstable. A geological funhouse that proves the weirdest terrain isn't always on top of the earth. Fact 46. When the ground just gave up. Cedar Sink looks like someone dropped a bomb in the middle of the forest. This 7-acre crater in Mammoth Cave National Park is what happens when a cave ceiling gets too tired and collapses suddenly. The result? A 300-foot deep sinkhole with vertical walls, lush plant life, and its own microclimate. The air cools noticeably as you descend, and everything gets eerily quiet. It's a gorgeous place to hike, but also a sobering reminder that in Kentucky, the ground isn't always solid. Beneath your feet might be nothing but air, and sometimes that air turns into a pit big enough to hold a baseball stadium. Fact 45. The river that disappears into a bottomless hole. Lost River in Bowling Green doesn't act like a normal river, because it isn't. It flows for just 400 feet before plunging into a vertical pit over 430 feet deep. That's right, it's one of the shortest rivers on Earth, and also one of the deepest. The water bubbles up from a spring, drifts lazily across the surface like it's thinking about staying, then vanishes straight down into a gaping blue hole. The color is surreal. That deep, glowing sapphire you only get when light hits ultra-clear, ultra-deep water. It's like Kentucky said, sure, we'll have a river, but we're doing it our way. Fact 44. Kentucky cave shrimp. What's blind, see-through, and only exists in Kentucky? Meet the Kentucky cave shrimp, a tiny crustacean that spent millions of years evolving in complete darkness until it basically became a ghost. These little guys have no eyes at all because, honestly, what's the point when you live somewhere light's never reached? They're also totally translucent, which makes them look almost alien when you spot them in underground streams. Instead of seeing, they navigate by touch and smell, feeling their way around and sniffing out bits of organic matter that wash into their cave homes. They're federally endangered, which tells you just how fragile these underground ecosystems really are. Any pollution or disturbance up on the surface can mess with the hidden rivers below. Fact 43. Eyeless mammoth cave crayfish. Joining the Kentucky cave shrimp in the darkness is another troglodyte, the eyeless mammoth cave crayfish. These pale, ghostly crustaceans ditched their eyes generations ago because, well, just like the shrimp, why keep something you never use? They live in underground streams across Kentucky and Tennessee, feeling their way through pitch-black water and sniffing out bits of food that wash down from the surface. Their bodies are so translucent you can basically see their guts through their shells. Evolution stripped them down to just the essentials. They're slow-moving scavengers that prove a simple point. If you live in permanent darkness long enough, eyes stop being useful and start being a waste of energy. Fact 42. Shark fossils in cave walls. Here's proof that the past is literally written in stone in Kentucky. Mammoth Cave has proven to be a hotspot for ancient shark discoveries, with multiple species new to science identified within its limestone walls. And in 2025, the most shocking yet has been revealed: fossilized teeth from an extinct shark species embedded directly in the limestone. These teeth belong to a pedalodont shark, characterized by distinctive spoon-shaped dental structures that swam through warm tropical seas covering Kentucky roughly 300 million years ago. The shark species was previously unknown to science, identified entirely from teeth preserved in cave ceilings and walls. This discovery proves Mammoth Cave's limestone formed from ancient seabeds where prehistoric sharks hunted. Fact 41. Over 70 prehistoric fish species. We're not done with Mammoth Cave just yet, because this place truly serves as much more than just a geological wonder. It's a fossil repository containing remains from over 70 prehistoric fish species, including ancient sharks and ray-like creatures. These fossilized teeth and bone fragments prove that millions of years before the cave system formed, this region was sitting under a warm, shallow sea teeming with marine life. The limestone bedrock itself consists largely of compressed marine organism remains, effectively solidified ocean life. As you walk through Mammoth Cave passages, you're literally inside an ancient reef system that's been lifted above sea level and hollowed out by groundwater. Every surface contains microscopic fossils, and occasionally larger specimens emerge from the rock, offering tangible connections to Kentucky's submarine past when sharks ruled these waters. Fact 40. The lake that swallowed a river and became a sea. Kentucky has more shoreline than California, and it's not a trick of geography. It's because of Kentucky Lake, a man-made giant that stretches 184 miles long and spans more than 160,000 acres. Built in 1944 by damming the Tennessee River, this artificial lake is now the largest by surface area east of the Mississippi. Its creation reshaped the entire region, drowning towns, carving new coastlines, and turning sleepy riverside communities into lakeside destinations. It generates hydroelectric power, protects against floods, and fuels an entire economy based on boating, fishing, and tourism. If you grew up here, you've only ever known this inland sea. What came before? That's now underwater history. Fact 39. Record-breaking fish. Now, not only is Kentucky Lake massive, but it's also teeming with enormous beasts. Numerous state records have been set here, including the largest white bass, buffalo carp, and yellow perch in Kentucky. The ideal environment for prize fish to grow to enormous sizes created by submerged timber, differing depths, and a strong food chain. Anglers come from all over the country trying their luck, hoping to land something worth mounting on the wall. The mix of river and reservoir ecosystems keep the fish populations healthy and thriving. For serious fishermen, Kentucky Lake is the holy grail. It's actually pretty cool that a man-made lake can support wildlife this well, sometimes even better than what nature came up with on its own. Fact 38. The Green River. The Green River might be the most unpredictable waterway in Kentucky. For 384 miles, it winds through forests and farmland, and right through the middle of Mammoth Cave National Park. It's not just scenic, it's part of how the cave formed in the first place. This river literally helped carve out the longest cave system on Earth. In some places, you can kayak under rock ceilings, drift through cathedral-sized chambers, and then burst back into daylight without warning. It's like paddling through a magic trick. One moment you're outside, the next deep underground. Few rivers anywhere flow with this much mystery. Fact 37. Red River Gorge, Arch Capital. The Red River Gorge in Daniel Boone National Forest contains over 150 natural sandstone arches, one of the highest concentrations of natural arches anywhere on Earth. These formations, which range from little windows to enormous bridges, were formed over millions of years, as softer rock layers were worn away by wind, ice, and water, while tougher cap rock remained. Despite being less well-known nationally, the density of arches here equals well-known Western formations. Rock climbers consider Red River Gorge world-class terrain, with hundreds of established routes on sandstone cliffs. Hikers can spend weeks exploring different arch formations, each with unique character and geology. The gorge proves Kentucky can compete with Utah for natural stone architecture. You just need to know where to look in the Appalachian foothills. Fact 36. A stone bridge you can walk across. For now. Imagine walking across a 78-foot-long bridge made entirely of sandstone, with nothing holding it up but gravity and time. That's what you get at Natural Bridge State Resort Park, where a massive rock arch rises 65 feet into the air, held in place by millions of years of erosion and one hard layer of surviving stone. It's been here longer than recorded history. Native Americans knew of it long before any settlers arrived. You can hike across the top or stand underneath and stare straight up at thousands of tons of suspended rock. But nothing lasts forever. One day, this bridge will fall. Fact 35. Cumberland Falls and the Moonbow. Cumberland Falls plunges 68 feet over a 125-foot wide chasm. They call it the Niagara of the South, which is pretty generous considering it's 1/10 the size. But here's what makes it special. It's one of only 2 places in the Western Hemisphere where you can see a moonbow. On clear nights during a full moon, the mist refracts moonlight into actual rainbow colors. You need patience, timing, and luck to catch one. But when it happens, you're witnessing something most people will never see. Sometimes the show beats the stage. Fact 34. The tallest waterfall you've never heard of. Tucked deep in the Appalachian forest, Kentucky hides a vertical secret. Yahoo Falls plunges 113 feet over a sandstone cliff, making it the tallest waterfall in the state. It's not flashy, but it's intense. A single white ribbon dropping into a forest basin so green it almost glows. The hike there is quiet, the trail lined with wildflowers, and the sound of falling water echoes off the rock like thunder in a cave. Nobody really knows where the name Yahoo came from. Maybe a Native American word, maybe something stranger. But one thing's for sure, it's the kind of place that makes you believe in legends. Fact 33. A wilderness born from engineering. Imagine building a giant artificial lake and accidentally creating a massive wildlife sanctuary. That's what happened with Land Between the Lakes, a 171,000-acre peninsula nestled between 2 man-made reservoirs, Kentucky Lake and Lake Barkley. Dams created the lakes, but nature reclaimed the land between them. Now it's home to roaming bison, elusive elk, bald eagles, hardwood forests, and cypress swamps. You can drive scenic byways, hike hidden trails, or camp under skies untouched by city light. It started as a federal project. Today, it feels like a prehistoric refuge. Proof that sometimes when humans step back, nature stages a comeback. Fact 32. Ice storms that shatter forests. Kentucky's winters don't always come with snow. Sometimes they bring crystal destruction. When warm Gulf moisture collides with Arctic air, you get ice storms that turn the entire state into a frozen glass sculpture. Trees become icicles, power lines sag and snap, roads vanish under sheets of black ice. In 2009, a single storm knocked out power to over 600,000 people. Whole forests sounded like they were exploding as frozen branches cracked like rifle shots. It's hauntingly beautiful until it isn't. These aren't winter flurries. They're natural disasters made of glitter, and they've reshaped Kentucky's land time and time again. Fact 31. When gators come knocking in Kentucky. You don't expect to find alligators in Kentucky, and yet, every now and then, one shows up. Not in a zoo, not in a truck, just on someone's porch. Ring doorbell footage has caught gators wandering through yards in western Kentucky, far from their native swamps. How? It turns out summer heat and warm river currents from the Gulf create temporary migration highways. The Tennessee and Ohio rivers act like reptile runways, letting the occasional gator cruise hundreds of miles north. Most don't survive the winter, but their surprise cameos prove something wild. When rivers flow long enough, even ecosystems get visitors. Fact 30. Hills built by the wind, not the river. Western Kentucky is mostly flats until it suddenly isn't. Step back from the Mississippi River and the ground lifts into steep Loess Bluffs, rising 300 to 500 feet. These hills weren't carved by rivers, but built by wind. During the last ice ages, powerful gusts carried fine silt across the land, piling it into fertile but fragile mounds that erode easily. Today, they mark the transition between river lowlands and upland terrain, a sudden change that catches drivers off guard. They look soft, almost sculpted, like a wave frozen in time. In a state shaped by water, these hills are a rare monument to the power of air. Fact 29. The Knobs, nature's fence around the bluegrass. Picture a ring of stone towers guarding Kentucky's heartland. That's the Knobs, a necklace of steep conical hills that circle the bluegrass region like a natural fortress. They're not volcanoes or mountains, but erosion survivors. Millions of years ago, this was one huge plateau. Then the soft rock eroded away, leaving behind limestone outcrops that stand like sentinels. From a distance, they rise like shark fins from the land. Early pioneers dreaded them. Roads detoured around them, and to this day they mark where gentle farmland turns wild. They're Kentucky's geological perimeter, silent, jagged, and always watching. Fact 28. A hidden canyon older than mountains. Snaking through central Kentucky, the Palisades look like something ripped from the American West. Sheer cliffs up to 200 feet tall, carved by the Kentucky River over millions of years. But this isn't Utah, it's the bluegrass. And these walls tell a deeper story. Each exposed layer is a page from Earth's ancient history. Limestone formed when this land was an ocean floor. The gorge traps a cool microclimate that shelters rare plants and endangered bats you won't find anywhere else in the state. Paddle through it, and you're not just on a river. You're navigating a 100-mile canyon older than Appalachia itself. Fact 27. Pine Mountain and Cumberland Plateau. Ever wonder where Kentucky gets its wild side? The eastern border follows rugged highlands like Pine Mountain and the Cumberland Plateau, mountains reaching 2,500 feet that are the southernmost stretch of the Appalachians in the state. This terrain creates serious geographic and cultural barriers, with communities tucked into narrow valleys separated by steep ridges. The high country supports different ecosystems than the lowlands. Northern hardwood forests and rare plant species that don't grow anywhere else in Kentucky. Coal seams here fueled the state's energy economy for generations, though the environmental cost was steep. Some communities stayed isolated until just a few decades ago because the terrain was so tough. These mountains are Kentucky's rugged Appalachian side, a place that resisted settlement and still feels wild in a state known for bluegrass and bourbon. Fact 26. The town that lives in a crater. Middlesboro, Kentucky looks like any small town, until you realize it's sitting in the middle of a cosmic scar. Roughly 300 million years ago, a meteorite slammed into what's now southeastern Kentucky, leaving behind a 3-mile wide impact crater. Today, homes, stores, and schools sit inside it like nothing happened. Look closely at a topographic map and the perfect circular bowl is impossible to miss. Even weirder, it's the only place on Earth where coal is mined inside a meteor crater. The impact actually preserved the seams. Middlesboro residents literally live on top of a celestial crash site. It's not just local history, it's interstellar. Fact 25. The pass that built Kentucky. Cumberland Gap isn't just a dent in the Appalachians. It's a gateway that shaped the entire American frontier. At 1,300 feet elevation, it's one of just 3 natural breaks in the mountain chain that once walled off the West. Long before roads or railways, bison carved a trail through it. Then Native Americans. Then Daniel Boone. His wilderness road through this one pass funneled over 300,000 settlers into Kentucky. The secret? A soft band of rock eroded faster than the rest, punching a hole through the otherwise unbreakable ridge. Even today, highways still trace that same ancient route, because when the mountains finally open up, history follows. Fact 24. Daniel Boone National Forest. The 708,000-acre Daniel Boone National Forest sprawls across 21 counties of eastern Kentucky's hills and hollows, protecting over 1,600 square miles of Appalachian wilderness. This colossal forest encompasses sandstone cliffs, river gorges, natural bridges, and overlooks offering panoramic views. It provides habitat for black bears, elk, and countless other species while offering recreation ranging from rock climbing to backcountry camping. The forest demonstrates successful reclamation. Much of this land was heavily logged or strip mined before federal acquisition and restoration. Fact 23. Kentucky's Fossil Beach. Beneath Kentucky's Green Hills lies a tropical graveyard. No joke. 350 million years ago, central Kentucky sat under a warm, shallow sea. That ocean left behind thick beds of limestone made from coral fragments, seashells, and sea creature skeletons. Today, that ancient seafloor is the bedrock for towns, farms, and bourbon distilleries. And it's full of fossils. Crinoids, brachiopods, and bizarre creatures you've never heard of. You're walking over the remains of a prehistoric reef every time you cross a pasture or park in a limestone driveway. Fact 22. Hidden arches by the thousands. Think Utah has a monopoly on natural arches? Think again. Kentucky has over 2,000 of them, more than any state east of the Rockies. Most tucked away in Daniel Boone National Forest in the Big South Fork region. These sandstone spans were sculpted by millions of years of wind and water eating away softer rock beneath. Some are small enough to crawl through, others are big enough to support trees on top. And the best part? Dozens are still unnamed and unexplored, hiding in remote hollows with no trail signs. For arch hunters, it's the quietest gold mine in American geology. Fact 21. Blanton Forest, last old growth. Blanton Forest on Pine Mountain is Kentucky's last significant old-growth Appalachian forest. Ancient trees that escape the saw blades through remoteness and luck. This highland sanctuary harbors boreal relic species, northern plants and animals clinging to southern mountains like ecological refugees from colder times. The forest shows what Kentucky looked like before European settlement. Massive trees, complex structure, and diversity that second-growth forest takes centuries to replicate. Rare salamanders, millipedes, and plants survive here in isolation. Look at it like a living museum of what's been lost elsewhere and what's worth protecting. A baseline for measuring ecological damage and a goal for restoration efforts. Fact 20. A reef older than trees. At the Falls of the Ohio in Louisville, you can literally walk across an ancient tropical reef. One that's older than trees, dinosaurs, or even insects with wings. When the river runs low, over a mile of exposed bedrock reveals a 385-million-year-old Devonian coral reef. It's packed with fossilized crinoids, corals, and brachiopods from a time when Kentucky was a shallow sea near the equator. No digging required. These fossils are just lying there under your sneakers. It's one of the largest naturally exposed fossil beds in North America, and it offers something mind-bending, a chance to stand on life that died before land had forests. Fact 19. Big Bone Lick, Mammoth Graveyard. Big Bone Lick sounds like a joke, but it's actually one of the most important Ice Age fossil sites on Earth. In northern Kentucky, mineral-rich springs created a natural salt lick that lured woolly mammoths, mastodons, giant sloths, and prehistoric bison. Many got trapped in the swampy ground and died, leaving behind a massive trove of bones. Native peoples told stories about the big bones. Lewis and Clark sent samples to Thomas Jefferson, and early scientists used bones from here to help invent modern paleontology. To this day, bones still rise to the surface after heavy rains. A reminder that Kentucky's frozen past is never that far below. Fact 18. Underwater cavern fossils. Mammoth Cave isn't just the world's longest cave, it's also one of the strangest fossil archives on the planet. Deep underground, scientists have found fossilized fish, shark teeth, and amphibian bones embedded in the walls, or buried in the sediment. Some are 300 million years old, from when Kentucky was covered by warm tropical seas. Others date to Ice Age floods that poured into the cave after it formed. It's a layered fossil record unlike anywhere else, a prehistoric jigsaw puzzle where ancient marine life, swamp creatures, and cave-dwelling species all overlap in the dark. It's not just a cave, It's a time machine with walls that talk. Fact 17. When coal was a rainforest. Look at a lump of coal, and you're staring at sunlight from 300 million years ago, trapped inside the plants of a lost rainforest. Eastern Kentucky's coal fields come from the Carboniferous period, when the state was a huge tropical swamp. Fossils from that time show brachiopods, giant insects, and horseshoe crab ancestors all thriving in a steamy jungle world. Over time, dead plant material stacked up, got buried, and turned into coal. This stuff powered the Industrial Revolution, and also preserved one of the most intense climate shifts in Earth's history. Kentucky's coal isn't just fuel, it's the ashes of a forgotten ecosystem. Fact 16. Fossilized swamp trees. And it wasn't just sea creatures living in those swamps. Eastern Kentucky coal seams contain shards of fossilized calamites. These are towering tree-like plants from Carboniferous swamp forests that once covered the region. These fossils show that 300 million years ago, before the Appalachians rose to current heights, Kentucky supported thick, tropical vegetation reaching heights modern forests can't match. The calamites were relatives of today's tiny horsetails, grown to tree size in the warm, humid atmosphere of the Carboniferous. Their fossilized remains appear as distinctive patterns in coal and surrounding rock layers. Fact 15. The storm that erased towns. In February 2025, Eastern Kentucky faced one of the worst natural disasters in its modern history. Over a single weekend, nearly 9 inches of rain turned sleepy mountain streams into violent rivers. Hillsides collapsed, roads crumbled, 22 people lost their lives, and entire neighborhoods vanished under walls of water and mud. More than 300 roads were blocked or destroyed, some just gone. This wasn't a slow disaster, it happened almost overnight. Towns that had survived the 1937 flood found themselves underwater again, this time with even less of a heads up. It was a warning that Kentucky's steep slopes, rain-saturated soils, and shifting climate are a deadly combination we're still underestimating. Fact 14. The sky fell twice. Kentucky isn't just famous for horses and bourbon. It might be one of the only states hit by 2 meteor strikes. One is confirmed, the Middlesboro crater in the southeast, a 3-mile-wide impact site where people live, shop, and mine coal inside an ancient cosmic scar. But geologists think there's another. In western Kentucky, strange circular landforms and shocked quartz crystals hint at a second impact, millions of years older. These cosmic blasts released more energy than every nuclear bomb ever made, wiping out everything for miles and leaving marks so old they've almost disappeared. Almost. If confirmed, that makes Kentucky one of the most sky-punched places on the continent. Fact 13. A parking lot of prehistoric shells. North of Lexington, there's a stretch of exposed bedrock that looks like someone paved the ground with seashells. Except these shells are 385 million years old. The region's limestone is packed with trilobites, armored sea creatures that lived long before the dinosaurs, and brachiopods, crinoids, and other fossilized reef life. Entire rock faces are fossil mosaics, so dense they blur into texture. This was once a tropical seabed as rich and biodiverse as any modern coral reef. Some trilobites stretch several inches long, their exoskeletons perfectly preserved. You're not just walking on ancient rock, you're walking on the floor of a lost ocean. Fact 12. The salamander that breathes through its skin. It's slimy, ancient, and 2 to 3 feet long. Meet the eastern hellbender, North America's largest salamander, and one of Kentucky's weirdest residents. Found only in clean, cold Appalachian streams, these wrinkly amphibians look like creatures from a bad dream. Locals call them snot otters, or old lasagna sides. They don't have gills or lungs. They absorb oxygen through folds in their skin, so they need water that's crystal clear and ice cold. That makes them rare, fragile, and freakishly cool. Biologists love them. Polluters fear them. Because if the hellbender disappears, it means your river's already dying. Fact 11. Lotus leaves the size of manhole covers. Kentucky's limestone springs can grow giants. In certain wetlands fed by mineral-rich karst aquifers, American lotus flowers have exploded in size. We're talking blooms the size of dinner plates and floating leaves that stretch nearly 6 feet across. These are some of the biggest lotus specimens ever documented in the US. The secret? Water chemistry. The minerals leaching out of Kentucky's bedrock supercharge aquatic plant life, turning ponds and backwaters into glowing jungles of prehistoric-looking flora. Fact 10. Kentucky's wild weather swings. With a recorded range of 151 degrees Fahrenheit, the state has swung from a sweltering 114 degrees Fahrenheit in Greensburg, 1930, to a brutal negative 37 degrees Fahrenheit in Shelbyville, 1994. That's hotter than parts of the Mojave and colder than most of Alaska. These extremes happen because Kentucky sits at a geographic crossroads where Gulf moisture collides with Arctic air. One day, it's tropical. The next, it's tundra. Summer heat waves often come drenched in humidity, while winter can bring icy Arctic blasts that shatter records. This volatility affects farming cycles, infrastructure stress, and even wildlife patterns. Fact 9. The relict darter, an endemic survivor. In the remote streams of western Kentucky's Bayou de Chine system swims one of the rarest fish, the relict darter, found nowhere else on Earth. This small, federally threatened fish occupies only about 33 stream miles across 2 isolated populations, making it one of the most geographically restricted vertebrates in North America. The relict darter gets its name from being an evolutionary remnant, a relict species that represents an ancient lineage surviving in a tiny refuge. Males develop distinctive lollipop-like white knobs on their dorsal fins during breeding season, one of the species' most unusual characteristics. The fish nearly went extinct due to agricultural runoff, stream channelization, and habitat degradation, but decades of conservation efforts have improved its status from endangered to threatened. It survives in undercut banks and beneath root mats where water flows quietly over sand and gravel. Fact 8. Canada, but on a Kentucky mountaintop. Up at the highest ridges near Cumberland Gap, Kentucky hides its own miniature Canada. We're talking about Appalachian spruce fir forests, Ice Age relics clinging to the mountaintops like biological time capsules. These trees, better suited to Nova Scotia than the South, are leftovers from the last glacial advance. As the ice retreated, they stayed, stranded on peaks where temperatures stayed just cold enough. They're home to northern wildlife and mossy understories that feel completely out of place in the bluegrass state. But they're also disappearing. Climate change threatens to push these high-altitude ecosystems right off the top of the mountains, leaving species with nowhere to go. It's one of the best examples of how past and future climates collide in a single forest. Fact 7. Rewilded megafauna. Imagine turning a corner on a Kentucky trail and seeing a herd of elk or a massive bison standing in your path. That's not a dream, it's reality at Land Between the Lakes. In a 17,000-acre prairie restoration zone, free-roaming herds of elk and bison have been reintroduced after disappearing from the state centuries ago. It's one of the largest rewilding efforts in the Southeast. And these megafauna aren't just big. They're ecosystem engineers. Their hooves churn soil. Their grazing reshapes plant communities. And their presence brings back a rhythm the land had forgotten. Seeing them today feels unreal, like time travel to a wilder Kentucky. But it also proves that with enough space and planning, we can bring lost pieces of nature back from the brink. Fact 6. Kentucky's Sky Highway. Twice a year, Kentucky skies fill with travelers. Not planes, but birds. Millions of them. The state sits squarely beneath the Mississippi Flyway, a major migratory route for birds flying between Arctic nesting grounds and tropical winter homes. From tiny hummingbirds to long-necked sandhill cranes, this aerial parade peaks in spring and fall. River valleys like the Ohio and Mississippi act like natural highways, guiding birds along predictable paths where they rest, refuel, and regroup. Wetlands and forests become rest stops on a journey thousands of miles long. For birders, it's like the Super Bowl. For scientists, it's proof that Kentucky's ecosystems serve global functions. For the birds, it's life or death, and Kentucky is a critical layover. Fact 5. Ancient monsters in the gravel. Look close enough in western Kentucky's riverbeds and you might find something shocking. Prehistoric fish fossils, right under your feet. Spiny sturgeon armor, bony turtle plates, pieces of creatures that swam here over 100 million years ago. They wash up after storms, embedded in ancient gravels eroded from long-buried rock layers. Some sturgeon fossils suggest fish the size of canoes. Others belong to now-extinct armored species that ruled Mesozoic waterways. Their discovery links modern rivers to ancient seaways, where reptiles and giant fish once ruled. In a place known for muddy catfish holes, it's a reminder that every bend in the river hides a page from deep time. Fact 4. Swamp South in the Bluegrass State. Think Kentucky's all horse farms and rolling hills? Head west and you'll stumble into something else entirely: southern swamp forest. In low-lying river bottoms, bald cypress and water tupelo trees rise from dark standing water. Spanish moss occasionally hangs from branches. Water moccasins slither under logs. Alligator snapping turtles patrol beneath the surface. It's more Louisiana Bayou than Louisville Bourbon. These ecosystems are rare for this latitude, made possible by Kentucky's position straddling multiple biomes. They support species that most of the state never sees, making western Kentucky one of the North's best places to experience the Deep South's ecological flavor. Fact 3. Ancient palm pollen. Kentucky feels a long way from the tropics, but it wasn't always. Soil cores from across the state have revealed ancient palm pollen, microscopic evidence that the region once supported subtropical forests. These fossils come from interglacial periods thousands of years ago when the planet warmed and species like palms migrated north. They're tiny, but they say something big. Kentucky's current landscape is just a phase in a very long story. As climates shifted, so did the plants. And as modern warming accelerates, palms could eventually return. These pollen grains are botanical ghosts, reminders that the forests we know are temporary costumes worn by ancient land. Fact 2. Fulgurites, lightning glass. When a bolt strikes sandy ridgetops at over 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, it can fuse the grains into glass tubes called fulgurites, natural sculptures shaped by sky fire. These glass roots twist into the earth, preserving the exact path of the lightning strike. Some are as thin as pencils, others as thick as tree limbs. Indigenous legends spoke of lightning spears striking the mountain. Turns out they weren't far off. Fulgurites are rare, delicate, and eerily beautiful. Tangible proof that a bolt from the blue touched ground right here. Fact 1. When the Ohio River flowed backward. Let's end with the flood that redefined Kentucky. In 1937, relentless rain turned the Ohio River into a monster, swelling so high it reversed flow in some areas. Over 1 million people were displaced across the Ohio Valley. Louisville was underwater. Entire towns vanished under the waves. Water backed up into Kentucky's tributaries so fast, people had minutes to flee. This disaster led to massive federal investment in dams, levees, and flood control systems that still define the region's rivers today. But for anyone who lived through it, the memory remains. A moment when one of America's mightiest rivers fought back and won. What about 50 insane facts about Michigan you've never heard?